The galaxy was a place of order, an intricate web of law, technology, and hierarchy spanning millions of star systems. For countless millennia, the Galactic Council had ruled with a combination of diplomacy, surveillance, and brute authority, ensuring that no species could rise above its prescribed limits. Among the myriad regulations imposed to preserve this fragile stability, few were as absolute or as terrifying as the ban on dimensional tunnels. Dimensional tunnels were once heralded as the pinnacle of interstellar engineering, a gateway to instantaneous travel across light years, capable of connecting distant systems in an instant. They were marvels of mathematics and physics, the ultimate triumph of ingenuity. Entire fleets had been sent through these tunnels during the Age of Expansion, carrying colonists, trade goods, and explorers to uncharted systems. At first, the results were spectacular. Civilizations flourished, empires spread, and commerce accelerated beyond imagination. But miracles, as the Council had learned, often carried a shadow. Dimensional tunnels were unstable. A single miscalculation could rip entire star systems from their orbits, collapse planets into themselves, or erase fleets from existence without leaving so much as a trace. In the wrong hands, tunnels were weapons of catastrophic potential. Whole civilizations had vanished, leaving nothing but a hollow echo in the galactic registry. The Council had no choice but to act. The ban was total. All research, maintenance, and use of dimensional tunnels were outlawed across all known space. Enforcement was ruthless. Patrol fleets monitored hyperspace lanes, drones scanned systems for tunnel activity, and any detection of a tunnel active or dormant was considered an act of criminal negligence at best and treason at worst. Penalties were draconian: imprisonment in zero-time cells, permanent revocation of warp privileges, or the ultimate punishment, erasure from the galactic registry. This last measure was feared above all. To be erased was not to die. It was to never have existed. Names, records, memories, even the echoes of one's presence in the universe were stripped away. It was the ultimate deterrent, designed to impress terror even into the most brilliant minds. For most species, this was the end of the story. Tunnel research ceased, and any remnants of the technology were buried or destroyed. The galaxy moved on, secure in the belief that the threat of dimensional chaos had been neutralized. And yet, the humans, small, unruly, and endlessly curious, were not most species. On the outskirts of the Auriga Rift, a star system so remote that the Council's patrols passed through it like whispers on a wind, humans had stumbled upon one of the few remaining dormant tunnels. It was ancient, its origin unknown, buried beneath layers of frozen asteroids and veiled in energy signatures that only the most sophisticated sensors could detect. To a typical alien race, the tunnel would have been a death trap, a problem to report, a hazard to avoid. But to humans, it was a puzzle, a challenge, and, most of all, an opportunity. The first discovery was, in true human fashion, accidental. Commander Lyra Vance and her crew were conducting routine cargo runs along the outer rim of the system, transporting rare minerals and supplies to the sparsely populated mining colonies. The route was tedious, stretching for weeks through dangerous nebulae and asteroid fields. The crew was tense, the freighters slow and cumbersome, and morale was low. Then the tunnel appeared not as a threat, but almost as a gift. Sensors detected a shimmering corridor in subspace, barely noticeable, pulsating faintly with a rhythm that suggested life. Lyra studied it, her instincts telling her to proceed cautiously. Yet, human curiosity won out over caution. The freighters entered. Time and distance warped in ways no human had yet fully understood. The months-long journey was compressed into hours. Systems that once seemed impossibly distant were suddenly within reach. For most species, such an event would trigger fear, panic, or immediate reporting to the authorities. Humans reacted differently. They laughed. The tension of the long voyage evaporated into exhilaration. Crew members exchanged daring grins, eyes alight with possibilities. This was more than discovery. It was a revelation. Where the Council saw danger, humans saw potential. Where others saw annihilation, humans saw a challenge waiting to be conquered. Lyra, ever the risk-taker, turned the moment into a game. She challenged her crew to navigate the tunnel, not for profit, not for accolades, but for skill, daring, and pride. The freighters weaved through the tunnel's twists, dodged unstable energy eddies, and emerged on the other side with both hearts pounding and laughter echoing through the ship's comms. They had survived the impossible, not as conquerors of a system, but as pioneers of a new kind of human audacity. This small act would have enormous consequences. The discovery of the tunnel and the uniquely human response to it marked the beginning of a movement the galaxy could not anticipate. For while laws could prohibit the use of technology, they could not forbid imagination. And humans, resilient, fearless, and stubbornly inventive, were about to demonstrate that some rules were meant not to be obeyed, but to be rewritten. As word of Lyra's discovery spread through human networks, the galaxy began to stir. Subspace channels carried whispers of humans navigating what no other species dared approach. Rumors grew into stories, stories into legends. And at the center of it all, humans were laughing, not at the law, not at danger, but at the thrill of discovering what lay beyond the boundaries of the known universe. In the cold, silent reaches of space, where the Council assumed it had total control, a spark had ignited. A spark that would become a wildfire of ingenuity, audacity, and undeniable human defiance. The galaxy had outlawed dimensional tunnels. But in true human fashion, the first spark of rebellion wasn't violence or defiance, it was joy, and it was irresistible. The tunnels, dormant and dangerous as they were, had found their true masters. And they were human. The first race was, in every sense, accidental. It wasn't planned. It wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't even recorded in any official logs. It happened because humans, in their stubborn curiosity and irrepressible thrill-seeking nature, refused to treat the universe as a collection of immutable rules. For centuries, the Galactic Council had assumed that outlawed tunnels would fade into obscurity, their dangers deterring even the most daring species. But humans were different. They did not see danger as a barrier. They saw it as a challenge. Commander Lyra Vance, still reveling in the exhilaration of her crew's accidental passage through the Auriga Rift Tunnel, had noticed something that no alien species would have considered. The tunnel was alive, or at least it behaved as if it were. It had moods, rhythms, and subtle variations that could be read, understood, and, if one was clever enough, mastered. Some corridors of the tunnel twisted violently, almost as if the fabric of subspace itself was testing intruders. Other stretches opened, in near-perfect straight lines, deceptively calm, only to collapse without warning into eddies of energy that could tear a vessel apart in an instant. Instead of reporting the tunnel to the Galactic Council, Lyra issued a challenge to her crew: navigate it faster, safer, more efficiently than anyone else aboard. The freighters, slightly battered, but still fully operational, became instruments of human ingenuity. Navigators recalculated routes in real time. Engineers rerouted power to shields and thrusters in milliseconds, and pilots executed maneuvers that, by any alien standard, were impossible. Every twist of the tunnel was a test. Every collapse of energy, a puzzle. Every successful maneuver was a triumph. The crew's first race through the tunnel was chaotic, thrilling, and dangerous. They zipped through collapses that would have destroyed conventional ships, banked around unstable subspace eddies, and emerged on the far side, not only intact, but exhilarated. Laughter echoed through the freighter's comm channels, a sound that seemed almost alien in its unrestrained joy. The victory was not sanctioned by medals or badges. It was intangible, but infinitely more valuable: bragging rights, personal pride, and the thrill of having survived the impossible. What had begun as a practical use of an outlawed tunnel became something else entirely: a sport. Humans were natural competitors. They did not need formal leagues, regulations, or spectators to turn every challenge into a contest. Every tunnel passage became a test of skill, speed, and ingenuity. Word spread quickly through human colonies along the outer rim. The first race became the story of legend. Lyra's Run, as it came to be known, was celebrated in cargo bays, cantinas, and spaceports. Humans spoke of it in awe, not for the danger they had faced, but for the mastery they had achieved over something the galaxy had deemed untouchable. Soon, other humans began to search for their own tunnels. Every system, no matter how remote, was examined with the hope of finding similar pathways through subspace. And when they found them, the races began again, each one unique. Some tunnels twisted into spirals, resembling hurricanes frozen in starlight, forcing pilots to navigate impossible turns. Others fractured unpredictably, splitting into multiple layers of reality, demanding split-second decisions that would test every instinct a human possessed. A rare few winked in and out of existence entirely, vanishing and reappearing in locations that made even the most experienced navigator's stomach turn. Humans treated these tunnels like living, breathing opponents. They studied patterns, anticipated changes, and memorized every subtle variation. Ships were modified not for warfare or trade, but for agility, durability, and speed. Hulls were reinforced to withstand the sudden spatial fluctuations of collapsing subspace corridors. Thrusters were tuned to microsecond precision. Navigation systems were reprogrammed to predict the erratic pulses of tunnel energy. What the Council had banned as dangerous became a playground for human innovation. Aliens observed with disbelief. Across the galaxy, reports began filtering in. Human pilots navigating tunnels that had killed fleets. Freighters and small vessels performing maneuvers that defied physics as understood by the Council. Each success was a challenge to the established order. Where other species saw rules, humans saw opportunities. Where others saw annihilation, humans saw sport. And perhaps most importantly, where others saw consequences, humans saw the thrill of mastering the unknown. It wasn't just the tunnels themselves that fascinated humans. It was what they represented: a domain where no council law, no patrol fleet, and no alien prejudice could touch them. In the isolation of the Auriga Rift, and later across dozens of outer systems, humans discovered something profound. They did not need permission to prove themselves. The universe, with all its prohibitions, chaos, and danger, was theirs to challenge, to understand, and to conquer. And so, the first human races through dimensional tunnels became more than contests. They became statements. Silent, unrecorded, but visible in the tremors they sent across the galaxy, humanity was a force that would not be contained. The Galactic Council had outlawed these tunnels to prevent destruction, but humans had discovered a truth the Council had failed to anticipate. Danger was not an end. It was an invitation. And for humans, every forbidden tunnel was now a racetrack, every twist a challenge, and every collapse a thrill waiting to be mastered. As the human races through dimensional tunnels became more frequent, the whispers began to reach the ears of the galaxy. At first, the reports were dismissed as exaggerations, rumors spread by thrill-seeking colonists. Humans had a reputation for audacity, for bending rules, for surviving situations that would terrify more cautious species, but no one truly believed that a species could consistently master something as dangerous and forbidden as dimensional tunnels. That belief did not last. Alien patrols sent to monitor outer systems began returning with perplexed reports. Scout drones, equipped with sensors far more advanced than any human technology, captured glimpses of freighters twisting through the tunnels at impossible velocities. Ships would vanish into a section of subspace, only to reappear moments later, perfectly intact, as if the very laws of physics had bowed to human skill. Observers reported sudden maneuvers that defied prediction vessels banking around collapsed corridors, skimming the edges of unstable energy eddies, and navigating corridors that seemed to shift and rewrite themselves mid-transit. To any other species, these feats would have been suicidal. To humans, they were routine. The Galactic Council's reaction was swift and severe. Patrol fleets intensified their monitoring. Reports of unauthorized tunnel activity were flagged for immediate investigation. Colonies suspected of harboring tunnel racers were threatened with sanctions, trade restrictions, or outright quarantine. Warnings were broadcast across systems. Dimensional tunnels were illegal, dangerous, and any human caught using them would face consequences beyond imagination. Yet the humans adapted faster than the Council could react. Rules were meaningless when agility, cunning, and creativity determined survival. Every patrol fleet that attempted to intercept human racers was met with evasion so precise that it seemed preternatural. Tunnels were used as shortcuts, escape routes, and racetracks simultaneously. What the Council intended as a prohibition became, instead, a challenge, and humans thrived on challenges. Human ingenuity turned the tunnels into something no other species had considered, a spectacle. Hidden broadcasts were transmitted through subspace channels, smuggled into observation stations, cantinas, and illicit communication hubs. Entire communities of humans and sympathetic aliens gathered to watch the races in awe. Holographic recreations captured the twists, flips, and near misses of each vessel, showing the impossible paths the racers had taken. Each broadcast, though illegal, spread fascination and admiration across systems, earning humans both admiration and fear. It wasn't just the races themselves that astonished alien civilizations. It was the mindset of the racers. Humans approached the tunnels, not with caution, not with rigid protocol, but with curiosity and joy. They treated danger as an invitation, unpredictability as a puzzle, and chaos as a challenge to master. Every maneuver, every calculated risk, every impossible victory became a testament to human creativity, resilience, and sheer audacity. Aliens who witnessed the races struggled to comprehend them. Military strategists tried to analyze the tactics, only to find patterns that seemed random yet perfectly synchronized. Engineers attempted to reverse engineer human ships, only to discover that the skill lay not in technology, but in instinct, adaptability, and intuition honed over decades of survival in unforgiving environments. Scholars debated whether humans were reckless or brilliant, fearless or foolhardy, but even the harshest critics could not deny the truth. Humans were redefining the very concept of mastery over space. The races had consequences far beyond entertainment. Human colonies along the Auriga Rift and other outer systems began modifying their infrastructure to support tunnel racing. Observation stations, maintenance yards, and training facilities were built in secret. Ships were adapted for speed and agility rather than cargo or combat. Pilots trained relentlessly, studying energy fluctuations, mapping tunnel irregularities, and developing maneuvers that were recorded, shared, and refined across colonies. What began as a single accidental race had sparked a revolution in human engineering and ingenuity. Through it all, the Galactic Council grew increasingly agitated. Orders to shut down races were ignored. Fines were avoided through clever evasion. Patrol fleets, the pinnacle of galactic enforcement, were outmaneuvered repeatedly. The humans were not only surviving, they were thriving, learning more about dimensional tunnels with every race than any council research team had in decades. What the galaxy had outlawed, humans had turned into an arena for skill, daring, and defiance. In secret, some alien observers began to whisper admiration. In a galaxy obsessed with rules, humans had found a loophole that no law could fully close. They did not merely survive the dangers of the forbidden tunnels, they mastered them. And in mastering them, humans reminded the galaxy of a truth that had long been underestimated: a species willing to embrace risk, to challenge the impossible, and to turn fear into exhilaration could achieve feats no law or order could ever contain. By the time the news of Jax Orion's later feats in the Interstellar Hypertrack Championship reached the Council, the seeds had already taken root. Across the galaxy, both humans and sympathetic observers began to realize that something extraordinary was happening. The tunnels, outlawed and feared, were no longer tools of destruction. They were racetracks. They were proving grounds. They were arenas in which humanity's audacity, skill, and indomitable spirit could shine. And the galaxy watched in awe. The Interstellar Hypertrack Championship was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Held in secret in the outer rim, among a network of hidden tunnels, and protected by layers of human ingenuity, it had grown from whispers and rumor into a phenomenon. Every system, with even a faint link to human colonies, knew the name Jax Orion. He was not the fastest pilot by conventional measures, nor the wealthiest. What set him apart was instinct, courage, and a willingness to face what no one else dared approach. And this year, the championship would cement his name in galactic legend. The Maelstrom Tunnel, the course, chosen for the final race, was notorious across whispered human networks. Ancient, unstable, and unlike any other, it had swallowed entire fleets in the past. Subspace within it roiled unpredictably, bending reality in ways that defied comprehension. Some stretches of the tunnel twisted upon themselves, forming loops that seemed to intersect dimensions. Others fractured, creating multiple paths that appeared and vanished at random intervals. Even veteran racers hesitated at its threshold, the sheer risk enough to deter almost anyone. But Jax Orion did not hesitate. As his craft approached the tunnel's entrance, sensors screamed warnings of gravitational distortion, energy eddies, and microcollapses in subspace. Jax's hands moved over the controls with effortless precision. Years of training, countless smaller races, and an uncanny understanding of human intuition in subspace guided him. He did not merely pilot the craft, he danced with the tunnel. Every twist, every spin, every collapse was met with split-second adjustments. Thrusters flared, shields shimmered, and the hull groaned, but the ship stayed alive, bending to the will of its pilot. Observers, both human and alien, watched via smuggled holo-transmissions. The camera feeds often couldn't keep up. The ship vanished and reappeared in ways that no sensor could predict. Loops, corkscrews, and sudden directional shifts were executed flawlessly. Jax's craft seemed to defy gravity, time, and even logic. One section of the tunnel bent reality so sharply that spectators saw multiple images of the ship simultaneously, as if the tunnel itself had cloned him across parallel dimensions. And still, Jax pressed forward. Moments of near catastrophe struck repeatedly. Energy eddies threatened to tear the vessel apart. Fractures in the tunnel threatened to collapse entirely. A single miscalculation would erase him from existence. Yet, Jax navigated each obstacle with uncanny precision, anticipating the tunnel's unpredictable fluctuations as if he could feel its pulse. Each success sent waves of awe through viewers, both human and alien. They were witnessing more than a race, they were witnessing mastery over something that the galaxy had deemed untouchable. The climax came at the final stretch, a section so unstable that no ship had ever survived it. The tunnel split into 3 layers, each twisting at impossible angles and pulsing with energy that threatened to collapse in on itself. Jax's ship weaved between them, appearing to defy every law of physics. Sparks of subspace energy licked the hull, shields glimmered under strain, and for a moment, it seemed the impossible would finally claim him. Then, with a daring maneuver that no simulator could replicate, he banked sharply through the center layer, using the collapsing energy currents to propel his ship forward. He crossed the finish line, mere seconds ahead of his closest rival. Sensors and spectators alike were stunned into silence. The feat was impossible. The Maelstrom Tunnel was meant to be a graveyard, yet here was a human emerging unscathed. Even the most skeptical council representatives could not deny it. Jax Orion had done what no other species could. He had mastered the impossible, turning a forbidden, lethal tunnel into a showcase of skill, courage, and ingenuity. The implications were immediate and profound. Across the galaxy, alien scholars, engineers, and strategists debated what they had seen. Could any other species replicate this? What did it mean for control of interstellar space? And most importantly, how could a single species consistently achieve feats that defied every known law of physics? The Council's reaction was a mixture of awe, fear, and frustration. Humans had proven, yet again, that they were not bound by rules, regulations, or even danger itself. But for Jack's Orion, the thrill was simple. The danger had been exhilarating. The tunnel had challenged him, teased him, and demanded everything he had. And he had met it. Humans had always thrived in the face of the impossible, and this race was no exception. In that moment, as celebrations erupted in hidden stations across the galaxy, one truth became undeniable. The era of humans mastering dimensional tunnels had truly begun. What had been outlawed, feared, and considered untouchable was now their proving ground. The galaxy had outlawed these tunnels, but humans had turned them into arenas, racetracks, and stages for feats that would echo through generations. Jack's Orion's triumph was not just personal. It was emblematic of a species that laughed at danger, embraced the impossible, and refused to be constrained by the laws of others. In every warp, every twist, and every impossible maneuver, humans were redefining the very meaning of mastery. And for the galaxy, it was a spectacle no one could ignore. By the time the echoes of Jack's Orion's triumph spread through the galaxy, it had become clear that something extraordinary was underway. The humans were no longer merely navigating outlawed tunnels, they were mastering them. Every daring pilot, every ingenious engineer, every colony on the fringes of known space contributed to a growing human phenomenon that the Galactic Council could neither predict nor control. Where once the tunnels had been feared graveyards, they had become proving grounds, arenas, where humanity's audacity shone brighter than any star. The Council attempted to reassert its authority. Patrol fleets scoured systems, fines were levied, and official proclamations warned that the use of tunnels would result in the most severe consequences imaginable. Yet, every effort was outmaneuvered. Humans had not only adapted, they had thrived under pressure. Outlawed tunnels were no longer liabilities. They were racetracks, classrooms, laboratories, and playgrounds all in one. Where other species saw risk, humans saw opportunity. Where others saw rules, humans saw a canvas upon which to paint their ingenuity. Colonies transformed in response. Hidden stations became training centers. Maintenance docks were rebuilt for speed and agility, and advanced simulators taught new generations of pilots to read the tunnels like living entities. Engineers pushed the boundaries of human technology, reinforcing hulls, tweaking thrusters, and designing sensors capable of predicting the ever-shifting patterns of subspace. Humans weren't just racing, they were learning, evolving, and conquering a form of travel that had been outlawed for its uncontrollable danger. The galaxy began to take notice. Even alien civilizations, long convinced that humans were reckless and limited, began to recognize a new truth. Humans did not simply survive the impossible, they thrived in it. Military analysts and scholars debated what they had witnessed. Ships moving through unstable subspace corridors with precision beyond calculation, pilots anticipating collapses and eddies before they occurred. Entire races of humans coordinating feats that no other species could replicate. It was not just audacity, it was mastery. And yet, humans themselves treated the accomplishment with remarkable humility. The thrill, the joy, the camaraderie, these were the true rewards. Victory was measured not in medals or titles, but in laughter, shared exhilaration, and the knowledge that they had faced what others feared and emerged triumphant. Every race through a tunnel, every maneuver through unstable subspace, every risk successfully navigated reinforced the same lesson. The universe was not a set of constraints, but a challenge to be embraced. Legends of the races spread faster than patrol fleets could chase. Across the galaxy, tales of human pilots weaving through maelstrom tunnels, spiraling through collapsing corridors, and mastering impossible twists became the stuff of myth. In some systems, humans were celebrated secretly as pioneers. In others, their audacity inspired a mix of fear, admiration, and envy. The simple fact remained: humanity had turned the outlawed tunnels into arenas where skill, daring, and ingenuity defined success. By the end of the century, the transformation was complete. What had been illegal, dangerous, and forbidden was now synonymous with humanity itself. The tunnels, once symbols of potential annihilation, had become proof of a species' uncontainable spirit. Other civilizations might attempt to replicate the feats, but none could match the combination of instinct, creativity, and sheer fearlessness that humans displayed. They had not only survived the laws of the galaxy, they had rewritten the rules entirely. The legacy of the first accidental race in the Auriga Rift endured. Lyra Vance's daring and the crew's laughter had sparked a movement that no patrol fleet, no council decree, and no alien opposition could halt. Humans had shown the galaxy a truth it had long underestimated: audacity, curiosity, and the refusal to bow to fear could triumph where laws and logic failed. Well, dimensional tunnels were no longer merely conduits through space. They were racetracks, proving grounds, and symbols of human ingenuity. The galaxy had outlawed dimensional tunnels. Humans turned them into racing tracks. In doing so, they reminded every civilization, from the smallest mining colony to the grandest starfaring empire, that some forces could not be contained, some challenges could not be avoided, and some species could not be stopped. Humanity was one of those forces. Humanity was that challenge. Humanity was unstoppable. And as the stars themselves shimmered in awe of the races weaving through outlawed tunnels, one thing became perfectly clear: the galaxy had underestimated humans. Once again, it had learned the hard truth. Danger could be mastered. Chaos could be tamed. And in every forbidden tunnel, the human spirit would always, inevitably, triumph.